It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at the Daily Brew, a cozy little cafe tucked at the corner of Maple and 3rd in the heart of Brighton. The kind of place where the smell of freshly baked croissants mixed with the rich aroma of roasted coffee beans, where the hum of quiet conversations and the clatter of ceramic mugs made it feel like home for anyone who walked through its doors. Behind the counter stood Carla Jennings, a 34-year-old single mother who had mastered the art of carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders without letting it show. To the customers, she was that warm smile who remembered their favorite orders and asked about their kids. But behind her kind brown eyes was a woman who hadn't had a full night's sleep in years. For Carla, life had shifted the day her husband left. One cold December evening, without warning, he was gone, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a 6-year-old daughter named Mia who still asked about him in her dreams. Since then, Carla had worn many hats: provider, protector, parent, and somehow optimist. She worked double shifts at the cafe, packed Mia's lunch before dawn, helped with homework after dark, and stretched every dollar like it was the last. And despite everything, she showed up at work every day with a quiet determination. But today was harder than usual. The morning rush hadn't slowed. Carla moved quickly, balancing 3 plates in one hand while pouring a cup of coffee with the other. The line was long, and the orders kept piling up. Her legs ached, her back throbbed, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Watching her from across the room was Greg Simmons, the store's manager. Greg was in his early 50s, with a permanent scowl etched across his face. He wasn't known for being kind. In fact, most of the staff dreaded his shifts. But no one seemed to bear the brunt of his frustration more than Carla. It was as if every disappointment in his life had found a convenient target in her. And today, Greg was in rare form. "Carla," his voice cut through the cafe like a whip. "Table 5's order is wrong again. How many times do I have to tell you to pay attention?" Carla froze. The tray in her hands felt suddenly heavier. She glanced over at table 5, where a young couple politely smiled, pretending they weren't hearing every word. "I'm sorry, Greg," she said quickly. "I'll fix it right away." But Greg wasn't done. He never was. "You're always sorry, aren't you? Maybe if you weren't so distracted with your pathetic life, you'd actually do your job right." The words hit harder than she expected. People were staring now. Some customers shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Others avoided eye contact altogether. Carla felt heat rush to her cheeks. She blinked rapidly to keep the tears from spilling. Not here. Not now. What she didn't realize was that someone else was watching too. At a corner table by the window, a man quietly sipped his espresso. He was dressed simply: dark jeans, a pressed shirt, but there was an air of calm authority about him. His name was Andrew Blake. What no one in the cafe knew was that Andrew wasn't just another customer. He was the CEO of the Daily Brew. And today, he wasn't here for a meeting or an inspection. He was here to observe, to see with his own eyes how his company's values were, or weren't, being lived out. He'd noticed Carla the moment he walked in. The way she moved swiftly but carefully, the way her tired eyes still managed to shine with kindness. He saw the exhaustion in her posture, but also the grace in how she treated everyone she served. And then he noticed Greg. Andrew watched the scene unfold, his fingers tightening around his coffee cup. Every insult Greg spat was another weight pressing down on Carla's already heavy shoulders. And still, she kept working, until she couldn't. Greg crossed the line one last time. "Maybe if you'd made better choices, you wouldn't be stuck in a dead-end job waiting tables," he said, his voice thick with disdain. Carla's hand shook as she wiped down a table. She clenched her jaw, forcing herself not to cry. She had Mia to think about. Rent. Groceries. She couldn't afford to lose this job, but she felt small, invisible, defeated. That was the moment Andrew stood up. "Excuse me," he said, his tone calm but commanding. Greg turned, irritation flashing across his face. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked, his customer service mask snapping into place. Andrew walked slowly to the counter, his steady gaze locked on Greg. "Yes," he said. "I'd like to speak to your manager." Greg gave a smug smile. I'm the manager, he said, squaring his shoulders. Good, Andrew replied evenly. Then you can explain why you think it's acceptable to treat your employees this way. Greg's smile faltered. Who do you think you are? Andrew reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, placing it carefully on the counter. I'm Andrew Blake, CEO of the Daily Brew. The cafe went silent. Even the espresso machine stopped hissing. Greg's mouth opened, then closed again. His face turned pale. I didn't realize. You didn't realize you were being watched? Andrew's tone sharpened. It shouldn't take me being here for you to treat people with basic respect. Andrew turned to Carla then, his expression softening. Carla, I want to personally apologize for everything you've endured this morning. And I suspect for a lot of mornings before this one. You're a remarkable employee. We're lucky to have you. Carla stood frozen, her hand covering her mouth. No one had ever stood up for her like this. Not for a long time. Andrew turned back to Greg. As for you, Greg, you're fired. Effective immediately. Greg's jaw dropped. You can't. I just did, Andrew said firmly. Collect your things. You're done here. Greg sputtered, but there was nothing left to say. He turned and disappeared in the back room. The cafe erupted in applause. Customers who had once been silent were now cheering. Carla stood in stunned silence as Andrew approached her again. Starting today, Andrew said, you're the new manager of this cafe. Carla shook her head slowly. Me? But I don't know if I'm. You are, Andrew said with a gentle smile. And you won't be doing it alone. We'll give you everything you need to succeed. For the first time in years, Carla felt a weight lift from her chest. She wasn't invisible anymore. Someone saw her. Someone believed in her. Weeks passed, and Carla thrived in her new role. The cafe changed. The staff worked together like family. Customers noticed the warmth, the kindness, the smiles that came easier now. Business was better than ever. One afternoon, Andrew stopped by again. I have one more surprise, he said over a cup of coffee. Carla laughed nervously. I'm not sure I can handle another one. I want to offer you a position at our corporate office, Andrew said. Better pay. Full benefits. More time for you and Mia. Carla's breath caught. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Andrew smiled. And she did. Months later, as Carla settled into her new role, she and Andrew found moments to talk between meetings. One day, over lunch, he shared something personal. I was a single parent too, he said quietly. My wife died when my daughter was just a baby. I know how hard it is to keep everything together. Carla's eyes softened. You understood all along, she said. I saw myself in you, Andrew replied. I knew you just needed someone to believe in you. Carla smiled through tears. Thank you, Andrew. You've changed my life. Life has a way of surprising us. Just when we feel the most alone, someone steps in to remind us we matter. That kindness still exists. That one person can change everything. Carla's story is proof that no matter how heavy life feels, there's always hope for a brighter tomorrow.